Finally, as it almost overtakes them, Kirk says, energize and detonate.
And he piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the rage and hate felt by his whole race. If his chest had been a cannon, he would have shot his heart upon it.
What?
Moby Dick.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain.
Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on? I'm James Kirk. These people are my friend and my shipmate. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
Joel on True, everyone, and welcome to Humanist Trek. It's a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
As you're hearing this, we're camping again. I don't have a ton to talk about this week, but we did have to take the camper back to the place that we bought it because it's a pop-up tent camper and and the crank. I'm not an engineer. Damn it, Allie, I'm just an old country doctor.
I'm not an engineer.
Oh, God. So the crank, as you crank the top up, there's a backlatch system that, like, when you let go of the crank, stops it so that it doesn't go and the top come down on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, whatever that thing is called, wasn't working. It worked the first time we went out camping. Everything worked fine. We got back home, put it in the driveway, went to set it up to clean it up. It wouldn't latch. So we dropped it back off. They were, I assume by the time we were hearing this, they got it back to us and we're camping. So
fingers crossed.
We're having a great time.
Otherwise, you'll be just out there for bears, camping on the ground for bears.
Like, could you imagine? So I don't know if I've told this story on the show or not, but when I was a kid, my parents had a pop-up tent camper like this one. Have I told this story before? You may have heard it. I don't know.
I've heard it. I don't know if you told it on the show.
Well, if it's a rerun, sorry, y'all. My dad had traveled with this. It wasn't a 2x4 maybe, but something like that. It was called, and it written on it, very important stick. And the very important stick was because this camper, the way that the top goes up is a series of cables that lifts the top up, right? And one of these cables would break all the time. Like it just broke all the time. And so we had a very important stick that when the cable broke on that corner, you could shove the stick up in there and it would hold the top up.
Maybe you need a new
I'm going to need 4 very important sticks because the whole damn thing won't stay up.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway, I assume it all got fixed and we're having a great time camping. I am still out of work, which is how we can afford to just jump in the camper and go like kind of anytime we want. I think like, man, I really need to find something work from home that I can do from anywhere because I would get in the camper and be gone all summer.
Right.
I would stay like a week and then move to a new campground and stay there for a week and move to another campground and stay there for a week. I would put a kayak in every body of water nearby. Yeah, I could live that life for a summer.
I thought about at some point just selling the house and just buying a mobile something or other and just live on the road, take the cats and just travel. Yeah.
The trouble that we're finding with like campground living is everything is booked like way in advance. Like you can't hardly get a spot in some of these places.
So you kind of have to know where you're going ahead of time.
Yeah. I mean, you really need to start booking like 6 months in advance, which is crazy because we're the like, hey, let's just pack our shit and go next weekend kind of people, you know?
Yeah. I didn't know that it was that way though. Wow. I thought you could just drive and then park somewhere.
Some of these places do have, like the place we stayed last time has, and when we looked to book this one, some places have like first come, first serve. But the problem with that is like in the same vein of I drive 2 hours to get to this campground and then the camper won't fucking go up or stay up.
Mm-hmm.
I drive 2 hours and get to a campground and they don't have any first come, first serve spots. So then what the fuck do we do? You get on the phone and find the next nearest place and just drive around from place to place until you find a spot. I don't know. I don't like that. That's a chance I'm not necessarily willing to take. I don't know. But one might say that I have a camping obsession.
Would one say that?
They might. Let's get into this week's episode. It's Star Trek, the original series, season 2, episode 13, Obsession.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us. No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, get anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course, visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
Nice segue. My cat currently has an obsession with me.
Well, you left those poor babies.
I came back. They had food.
Did you die?
But did I die?
This episode opens on the foam rock playset, and Kirk and Spock confirm a large boulder contains pure tritanium. More mining? Jesus.
Again, that's what we do.
This
rape the planet of its resources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This tritanium stuff is supposedly 20 times harder than diamond, and Spock corrects to 21.4 times as hard, to be exact. Right off, I thought, hang on, the captain and first officer are doing the boots on the ground geology study? Like, don't we have specialists for that?
They all end up dead. Every time they bring somebody else in, they just end up dead.
Kirk calls Scotty up on the Enterprise and asks for a message back to Starfleet requesting a survey vessel immediately. While this conversation is happening, we see a smoke cloud appear above a rock nearby. But then Spock phasers off a piece of the tritanium rock and the cloud disappears.
He phases off, this piece of foam just pops out.
Kirk takes a pair of clear plastic tongs and picks up this piece of foam rock. And as he stands up, he recognizes a familiar smell, sweet like honey. And he recognizes this from years ago on another planet.
Well, Spock is like, well, we're in the growing season on this planet, the hemisphere of this planet. So there's doubtless pollen aromas that he might be smelling.
But Kirk recognizes this smell as a threat and calls up Red Shirt Rizzo. Now they say
Red Shirt Rizzo.
Rizzo is how they pronounce it, or Rizzo. But I'm going to find Rizzo the rat drops to use throughout this episode.
Thank you for making me a part of this.
I don't know what that is.
Rizzo from the Muppets.
Oh.
The rat from the Muppets.
Okay.
I have a plush of Rizzo somewhere in this house. So he calls up Red Shirt Rizzo to make a sweep. While Kirk is giving these orders, the camera angle is like from up on that nearby rock where the smoke cloud thing was. That kind of suggests to us maybe they're being watched by something.
He asks Rizzo to take a scan for dichronium in the atmosphere and then set their phasers to disruptor B. I forget what the other term for that is. Maybe like stun. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he says, if you see a gaseous cloud, fire on it immediately.
Scotty calls to see if they're ready to beam up and remind us that they're due to rendezvous with the USS Yorktown, so they don't have time for a mystery.
They are carrying some perishable medical stuff, and they have they're on a limited time frame.
I was confused as to what these medical items were because I thought at the beginning they said vaccines. And then later they're talking about it as if it's like a kind of drug or a medical supplies or something.
Yeah.
Spock says that this dichronium stuff exists only in laboratory experiments, and Kirk sniffing the air like, Well, shit,
Somebody
it's gone.
farted. Somebody farted and he's trying to figure out who. In the meantime, there's 3 red shirts. So they took 3 red shirts with them, I guess. And they've all run into this clearing looking for the dichronium. And Rizzo, he says, like, I read dichronium for just a second, then I lost it. Almost as if something out there knows I'm scanning it. He's pulling this out of his ass.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps changing itself into something different. That's not possible. Nothing can do that.
Whoa, that's scary stuff. Hey, should we be worried about the kids in the audience?
No, it's all right. This is culture.
Behind these men, we see the fog machine go off again above a high rock. And and then at some point, the fog turns into the cloud that looks like the cloud creature thing from the Zephram Cochrane episode.
Yeah.
That looked like the same effect.
Yeah, it was like sparky. Once it covers them, it was like sparky and stuff, but then they start choking, like they can't breathe or something.
So Kirk and Spock go running, but it's too late.
Oh my God! They've killed
2 crewmen.
you bastards!
Rizzo is alive, but only barely.
God save my little broken body.
And Kirk calls Scotty for an emergency beam out. But before we go to theme, Spock asks if Kirk knows what it was, and Kirk says, something that can't possibly exist, but it does.
Well, the other 2 are dead, but they also are, they've painted them gray, as if they've been drained of all their blood or something.
Yeah, like all the red has left their skin. Captain's log. All personnel have been recalled from the planet due to this mystery. Nurse Chapel is tending to Ensign Rizzo, who is still unconscious, and taking transfusions as fast as they can give him, but his blood count is still 60% below normal. Kirk calls Spock on the bridge, and Spock's ready to leave orbit, but Kirk wants to stay and investigate. And then Scotty just cuts into this call? Is this a thing that they can do? And how does Scotty even know that Spock and Kirk are on the phone?
Apparently, that's something, because he says, yes, he's cutting in. He's like, cutting in if I may. And he cuts in.
That was weird.
But, and then I'm just like thinking, why are you going to stay there?
Yeah.
You can come back. Go deliver the medication to the USS Yorktown, and then come back, because there's nobody in immediate need except for Rizzo, who's in sickbay. But no.
You know what they need? They need a Commodore on the bridge to tell them
to take over.
Take over. Yeah. Scotty's worried about the Yorktown, these vaccines that are supposed to go to planet Theta 7. The Yorktown is a Constitution class ship, so yeah, why don't they just deliver the medical supplies themselves? Why the relay race?
Don't know. I don't even know where they got it from. Where did they get the medical supplies? Why couldn't Yorktown get it? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not leaving until we find out what's going on here, because that's what kind of Kirk's thing. McCoy's flummoxed. He says there's not a red corpuscle left in their bodies. And I don't know why they didn't just say red blood cell.
Maybe he's trying to sound doctory.
Maybe. No. Dumb old country doctor.
There's no cuts or marks of any kind on their body, no incisions. And so McCoy's like, what happened is medically impossible. But Kirk says, I suggest you look at the record tapes of past similar occurrences. You'll find that the USS Farragut lists casualties 11 years ago from exactly the same impossible causes. So he's familiar with this thing. He still hasn't let on exactly what happened.
Yeah, he's pretty confident, but he wants one more piece of evidence to really confirm. He wants to talk to Rizzo. And so Chapel is finishing up a transfusion, and McCoy orders a hit of cordrazine. And Rizzo comes to, and Kirk asks if he remembers anything.
I fell down the chimney and landed on a flaming hot goose.
He remembers being cold, and he remembers a smell like being smothered in honey. and Kirk asks, did you feel a presence, an intelligence?
Did you
feel a presence inside you?
Oh my.
And yes, he felt it. It was drawing strength from them. And then Rizzo falls back asleep, and that's all Kirk needed to hear to fully confirm his suspicions. But we still don't know what those are. So Kirk leaves sickbay, and we get a short moment between McCoy and Chapel wondering what the fuck's going on.
And McCoy's going to go ahead and check out those tapes in the medical library like Kirk suggested so he can get the full picture of what's going on with Kirk.
As Kirk arrives on the bridge, Uhura's got a message from Starfleet, but Kirk doesn't want to hear it. He asks for the security duty officer to report immediately.
Spock is continuing the scan on the planet. There's still no readings of life forms. And Kirk is like, well, let's just assume that there's something so completely different that our sensors wouldn't identify it as a life form. I mean, that's what always happens. It's like they're normal scans. They can't find anything anyway. And Kirk's like, suppose it's composed of that rare element dichronium, a strange gaseous creature. And Spock says, I already scanned for dichronium on the planet surface and in the atmosphere and didn't find a trace.
So Kirk's like, let's assume it's something intelligent and that it may be able to camouflage itself. And Spock's like, well, to do that, it would have to completely change its molecular structure. And Kirk's like, hold on, I've never thought about that before. You may want to go meet up with McCoy. He's watching an old home movie, and I think you'll find it interesting. So Spock leaves the bridge, and on his way out, Ensign Garavik steps out and reports in. Kirk recognizes the name, and he starts to say something about his father, but Garavik cuts him off. He says, yes, and I don't want any special treatment for it. So I looked this up. Garavik's father was the captain of the Farragut, who Kirk served under, and we'll learn more about him and his fate as we go along.
But I always find it odd that Kirk never knows who's on his ship.
Right.
Because if,
he's going to get transfer rosters and stuff like that to have to review and sign, I'm sure.
Right. So I think he should know he's already on his ship.
Yeah. Uhura gets an update from sickbay. Rizzo has died.
Oh my God! They've killed Rizzo the rat. You bastards!
That's 3.
But hey, who's counting?
I am. We are. 3 red shirts so far.
Well, Garavik and Rizzo graduated the academy together and they were good friends. And Kirk's going to give Garavik a crack at what killed him. Why the fuck are they going back down to the planet's surface?
And they're taking 5 red shirts this time. Garavik and 4 more red shirts.
Here we are again, investigating some Scooby-Doo shit, and they could have just dropped a buoy, warning people to stay the fuck away, and gone on with their day.
Yeah, and then come back when they weren't in such a time crunch.
Mm-hmm. And this was my first indication of like, oh, maybe this is Captain Ahab again.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I mean, I guess if a creature could leave the planet, that wouldn't work if they just left. So maybe that was it.
I don't know, maybe. They didn't know, though, whether it was a creature.
Or not, right.
Or if it could leave the planet,
So Kirk, Garavik, and 4 new UCs beam down to the planet, and right away they pick up a change in their readings, a molecular shift. And they're picking up dichronium again, just over a nearby rise. So Garavik is going to take 2 UCs and go that way. And Kirk and the other 2 are going to go the other way, kind of circle around and come at them from the sides. And Kirk warns that this creature is dangerous. See it, shoot it. So he's confident that this is what he thinks it is, that it is a creature of some kind.
So Kirk takes Swenson and Bardoli, and then Garavik and his group go to another area, and the cloud comes out where Garavik and the other 2 Cs are. Now, Garavik does fire at it, like Kirk asked them to,
Mm-hmm.
But he did hesitate, but he did fire at it.
Kirk hears the phaser fire and comes running. But again, it's too late.
Oh my God! They've killed
1 crewman.
you bastards!
One of the UCs is dead, and the other one is hanging on by a thread. And Garavik's fine.
And Kirk is even more convinced now that not only is this creature intelligent, but he thinks it's the same one that decimated the crew of the Farragut 11 years ago in another part of the galaxy. And in the captain's log voiceover, he talks about how Spock and McCoy doubt him. And he thinks they're questioning his decision to stay here and fight this thing. And he even says, why am I keeping this ship here? So, yeah, Captain Ahab again.
Yep. And at least he knows he's a little bit obsessed by it right now.
Yeah, he's got some self-awareness still. KSM and Garavik gather in the conference room for a debriefing. Garavik says this thing was a gaseous cloud. Parts of it seemed more dense than others, maybe 10 to 60 cubic meters, but its size fluctuated as it moved. He didn't sense any intelligence, but he didn't make physical contact with it either. Garavik says it seemed to come out of nowhere, hovered for a moment, and then moved towards his men incredibly fast. And at the word hovered, Kirk perks up, and he's like, so tell me, how far away from this thing was Garavik when he fired? About 20 yards? And Kirk's like, wait, you fired at a hovering target 20 yards away and you missed? How the fuck did you get assigned to the flagship of the fleet anyway?
And Kirk accuses him of freezing. He's like, okay, so what you're saying is you froze. And Garavik didn't feel like he exactly froze, but he did hesitate because he was startled for a second. And then by the time he fired, the thing was already moving.
Kirk comes down real hard on this kid, relieved of duties and confined to quarters. And even McCoy's like, wow, aren't you being a little hard on that kid? But that hesitation cost one life and put another in critical condition. Spock tries to butt in with some science, but Kirk shuts him down, tells them both to make their reports and file their complaints there.
Garrett goes to his quarters and he plops down on his bed like as if he's been like grounded, like a grounded teenager for some reason.
I got teenager vibes big time because he flops down and then throws his arm over his face and it looks like maybe he's crying or something.
Yep.
He's got a 3D chessboard in his room. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Yep.
I love that stuff.
It was like right up on the headboard of his bed. Kirk arrives on the bridge and we get another round of, we need to leave, but Kirk doesn't want to, as Scotty and Uhura keep reminding us that the Yorktown is waiting.
They keep calling, saying, where are you?
It's gotten so annoying that Kirk says, I'm getting a little tired of my senior officers conspiring against me. And then after a beat, he's like, forgive me. Maybe I shouldn't have used the word conspire. And Scotty's like, you bloody right, you shouldn't have. Chekhov is covering Spock's station, and Kirk grills him. It's clear that something is bothering the captain. Some combination of the lives lost so far in this episode of Star Trek, the original series, and the losses from the Farragut all those years ago. He's just real snappy.
Yeah, and Chekhov's like, I've already scanned it, and he's already scanned it twice, and Kirk kind of snaps and says, well, run it 20 times if that's what it takes.
Spock pays a visit to McCoy in his office and says he needs his advice, and McCoy's like, well, I never thought I'd see the day. You wanted advice from me? Get the fuck out of here, Spock.
And he's like, you must be joking. And of course, Spock has to remind him, I don't joke.
Spock's like, listen, I was reading this book about a dude and a whale, and I'm starting to see some similarities here. So he's worried about Kirk's titular obsession with this creature. McCoy hasn't had a chance to study the information on the Farragut yet, but Spock has, and he learned that the captain's name was Garavik, the same as our ensign. And he's also discovered that Kirk was a young officer at the time and one of the few survivors. And Spock's like, I suggest you make some time between all of these autopsies to watch those old home videos from the Farragut.
And he just hands him a floppy disk. So meanwhile, the captain is being like a grounded teenager and laying on his bed. And he does a personal log. And he says, do I have the right to jeopardize my crew and my ship for a feeling I can't even put into words? So he's right now just examining his own motives for staying there. No man achieves Starfleet command without relying on intuition, but have I made a rational decision? Am I letting the horrors of the past distort my judgment of the present?
Yeah.
And then McCoy just walks right into his quarters. And then he says, mind if I come in?
He's finally watched the tapes and he's come here to try to put some perspective on this situation for Ahab. You see, 11 years ago, it was young Lieutenant James Kirk of the Farragut, who was stationed at ship's phasers and froze up when they faced this creature. Delayed his response by a couple of seconds, but it was enough for Kirk to blame himself for all the deaths the creature caused. 200 crew people, including Captain Garovic. So, which monster is the real issue here? The monster on the planet killing the red shirts? Or the guilt monster Kirk has been carrying around for 11 years?
And McCoy actually says something really, really wise here. He says, monsters come in many forms, and you know the greatest monster of all of them, Jim? It's guilt.
Kirk insists that this creature is intelligent, but more, it's malevolent, evil, and it must be destroyed. And McCoy says, to be so obsessed. And Kirk interrupts, obsessed? And McCoy continues, yes, obsession. It's the title of this episode of Star Trek, the original series. So obsessed that Kirk could destroy himself, his career, and a young boy who reminds him of himself 11 years ago.
And that's why he was so hard on Garovic.
Mm-hmm. Kirk throws down. He's like, don't push our friendship past the point where I have to take official, but he's cut off by McCoy. This is not about friendship. McCoy's considering Ahab's fitness to stay in command. What? Just last week, they were all prepared to look the other way while Kirk was very clearly unfit for duty. Now we're going to follow the regulations?
If it serves the story.
Exactly. Exactly.
Whatever serves the story.
McCoy says he's preparing a medical log entry on his estimation of the physical and emotional condition of the captain, which will require a witness of command grade, and he walks over to the door, opens it, and in walks Spock. So was Spock just standing out in the hallway this whole time?
It's an intervention. I think so. Yeah. I got the sense that was like
yeah. And Spock even starts quoting regs out of the manual. This has to be another case of filmed and released in a different order, I think.
It could be.
Or that the writers weren't looking at each other's work. Something like that, yeah.
Let me find out really quick. Yeah, well, no, The Deadly Years was released 7 episodes before the Obsession. So enough time for them to forget.
Yeah, exactly. Kirk believes this is the same creature that attacked the Farragut, and he talks about how when it attacked, as he lost consciousness, he could feel the intelligence of the creature, could sense it thinking and planning. And McCoy makes the argument against near-death experiences, and I really liked seeing this in the 60s. He's like, look, man, there's still a lot we don't know about the human brain, and it's real possible that when somebody loses consciousness, their brain makes up all kinds of shit that isn't real. But they agree that whatever it is deadly. And if it is the same creature, then it can travel through space, and that makes it a great threat to inhabited worlds. Kirk's like, yeah, there's a lot of ifs in there, but I think that warrants this level of concern, even if it isn't logical. McCoy says his medical log is still open. He hasn't made the final determination. But as Kirk goes to shoo them out, Chekhov calls down with an update. They've got a reading on the creature, and it's leaving the planet, heading into space.
Uh-oh. So they go to red alert and prepare to leave orbit. So now they're going to go chase this fucking thing across space?
Yeah, we got to chase the whale now. Exactly. But they're not close enough for phasers to reach it, but they are gaining on it slowly, but it could still take days to catch up, and Kirk is happy to take those days to chase his whale.
He has forgotten all about the whole time-sensitive medication that he's carrying.
Yep.
And then they're trying to do Warp 8, and Scotty's like, we can't maintain this Warp 8 for much longer.
Chekhov gets the cloud on screen, and Spock's readings are conflicting. It's somewhere between matter and energy, or both, and it could possibly be using gravitational fields for propulsion. And Kirk's like, aha, see? Don't you find that sophisticated, Spock? And Spock's like, efficient, yes, but intelligence is another matter.
Chekhov said something that I didn't really quite get. He's like, open hatch on impulse engine number 2, and he's like, Mr. Scott was doing an AID cleanup on it. And
These are... there's a few of these moments in this scene that are foreshadowing, setting up things that are coming later. So this impulse engine vent being open is one of them. And Kirk just dismisses it. He's like, we're not going to use the impulse engines anyway. So instead of going and closing that vent or that hatch or whatever it is, they just clear the alarm. Finally, Scotty's warnings about the ship flying apart are heard. We cut around the bridge. Everybody's looking worried until finally Kirk orders them back down to warp 6. And Scotty breathes this sigh of relief.
Yeah. Hey, Kirk looks like he's about to cry right now.
Down in his quarters, Garrovick is on his back in bed and looking really affected by everything that's happened when Chapel comes in with a tray of food. Garrovick's not hungry, and he wants to know what's going on. This was a fun Chapel scene, I thought. She says, are we chasing that thing halfway across the galaxy? Yes. Has the captain lost his sense of balance? Maybe. Is the entire crew about ready to explode? Positively. You're lucky you're out of it. And Garrovick's like, out of it? I've caused this whole fucking mess. He refuses to eat, so Christine holds up a floppy disk and says, Dr. McCoy thought you might say something like that. This is his officially logged prescription for you, and it has one word on it, eat. Now, if you don't follow his orders, Dr. McCoy could and possibly would have you hauled down to sickbay and fed intravenously.
And she leaves. And then when she goes to McCoy's office and she puts that record tape that she was waving in Garrovick's face into McCoy's tray, and he's like, what's this? And, this is just a survey on Sydney respiratory diseases. She basically bluffed her way to get Garrick to eat and also to give him a little psychotherapy as well.
I thought that was so good, Chapel.
Good for you, Chapel. I like seeing her more.
Yeah.
It's good to see her more.
Yeah. On the bridge, the creature is slowing down to warp 2, and the Enterprise reduces speed 2. Phasers are hot. Back in Garrovick's quarters, he lifts the lid off of the plate of color cubes and launches it across the room like Trump with a plate of ketchup. And the cover conveniently hits directly on a switch that probably shouldn't even exist. This switch controls the ventilation bypass filter.
Why is it in his room?
Right.
Like this important switch should not be in a personal quarters, but yeah. Again, it's
for the story. Yeah. And the lid knocks the switch from active to bypass, so the filter is bypassed. As Garrovick falls to the bed again, Kirk's red alert call to battle stations comes across the speakers, and he dashes out of the room. The creature has come to a full stop now, as Garrovick rushes onto the bridge and asks for permission to return to his post, but Kirk ignores him. Like he's not even there.
Yeah, he's so focused on this cloud, his whale, that, he doesn't even acknowledge him.
They're in weapons range now, and they try phasers first, and that doesn't do anything, and then photon torpedoes. That doesn't do anything. But now they've got its attention, and it's coming right for us.
It's coming right for us!
So then they put their deflectors up, whatever that is. We don't know
whether they're different than shields at this point, or,
But, Spock says, deflectors are not going to stop it. And Scott says, that's impossible. Spock's like, I should have thought about this. For the creature to be able to use gravity as a propulsive force, it would have to have this capacity.
And it's not immediately clear what the fuck he's actually talking about.
I was just saying, I don't even know what he's talking about. Of course I don't. It's all bullshit science.
Right, exactly. But the creature is bearing down now, and Chekhov's checking that all hatches and vents are secured when he's got a red light on the board. Number 2, impulse engine vent. Remember?
Garrovick's room.
we just waved that away earlier.
Right.
As the cloud overtakes the Enterprise, Scotty reports that something has entered through that open vent. In the conference room, we learn that the creature came through the vent and attacked another 2 crewmen. McCoy says one has a chance at survival, but the other is dead.
Oh my God! They've killed
one crewman.
You bastards!
So the exact same scenario as the last 2 guys. And he goes hard at Captain Ahab for this. He says,
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your little quest. Captain Ahab has to go hunt his whale.
What?
You do have books in the 24th century.
tells Kirk that he can add that little price tag to his monster hunt. You didn't care as long as you could hang your trophy on the wall. Well, it's not on it, Captain. It's in it. Spock's logic breaks this up because the question of whether or not they should have chased the whale is moot now. He says, the creature is now after us. And McCoy's like, wait, creature? The fact that the cloud turned and attacked them was enough to convince Spock that they are dealing with an intelligence.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe. That still doesn't answer why the creature attacked, and Spock won't know that until he can get a closer look. And it was at this point that I thought, oh, fuck, is Spock going to try to mind meld a cloud like he did that moldy pizza?
He's always trying to mind meld shit. Jesus Christ. But no, hopefully not.
And the moldy pizza and the Nomad computer thing, the Nomad.
Oh, that's right,
drone.
Nomad. I forgot about that.
Kirk has Scotty try flushing radioactive waste into the ventilation system. See what that does. I'm sorry, did he just order radioactive waste pumped into the ship's circulation?
That would kill everyone, I would think.
Right? Well, I sure hope their filters are working. Foreshadowing. Before we get that payoff, though, Spock mentions that the creature has the ability to throw itself out of time sync. And that makes it possible for it to, phase out, to somewhere else or something.
What?
And then that's why the phasers can't hit it.
When did he come up with that?
Right? That's a big jump. And if that's the case, then Ahab and Garavik have no reason to carry this guilt around. Even if they had fired phasers 2 seconds or 200 seconds quicker 11 years ago, it would have had no effect on the creature anyway. Similarly, had Garavik hit the target when he fired earlier, it wouldn't have done anything either.
And he says, the fault wasn't yours, Jim. In fact, there was no fault at all. And although Kirk tries to push off his playing analyst, I think it did affect him a little bit, and maybe hopefully start him on the road to realizing maybe it wasn't his fault.
Right. And he says, if you want to play analyst, Spock, use someone else. My concern is with the ship and crew. Okay, keep telling yourself that.
Yeah. Because you could have just walked away and let this go, but now you're in this mess because you couldn't let it go.
So Kirk tells Spock to pick on somebody else. So he goes to Garavik's quarters to absolve him of his guilt. Spock tells Garavik, I would like you to consider that the hesitation for which you are blaming yourself is an hereditary trait of your species. When suddenly faced by the unknown or imminent danger, a human will experience a split second of indecision. He hesitates. But Garavik is staring off into nowhere. And Spock's like, do I have your attention? Yes, sir.
He's like, eyes up here. He's like, he's not paying any attention. But Garavik is like, it's really kind of you to come here. And again, Spock says, I'm a Vulcan. Kindness is a human emotion.
There is one great line that Spock has. He's like, I know you'd prefer to wallow in a pool of emotion. I think we have enough human emotions right now. And he starts to again suggest that Garavik rethink things, but suddenly he stops and smells something. And we see the cloud creature coming through the grate in the wall by that switch that he hit earlier with the lid.
Spock throws Garak out of his own room and shuts the door. And he's like, I'll try to seal it off. And he goes to close the vent. And then all the gas is seeping through the vent. And the frame ends with his hand over the vent.
Yeah. So this the switch broke off in his hand when he tried to flip the switch.
Right.
And then, he's got his hands pressed up against that grate. Seal off the cabin and get the fuck out, Spock.
But no, he's the hero. He's got to be the hero.
Of course. Garavik calls the bridge, and Kirk, along with a security and medical detail, head down to his quarters. He orders Scotty to reverse the pressure too, and we see the gas cloud being sucked back through the vent and out of the room. Outside Garavik's quarters, Kirk arrives as security is about to break down the door, and Kirk tells them to stop. He wants to take some tricorder readings first to make sure that creature's not in there.
McCoy's like, Jim, Spock could be dying and you're going to take readings? But then suddenly now he's worried. Kirk is worried. Well, if we let the thing on the ship, Spock will have a lot of company if he's dead.
Garvik has a real reason to feel like a shitbag now. His hesitation made no difference in stopping the creature, but his childish tantrum throwing shit earlier fucked up the vent in his room, and that allowed the creature to get in and get Spock. He says to Kirk, Spock saved my life. I should be lying dead in there, not him. But the doors open and out steps Spock. And Spock's like, who's got my Katra?
It seems, Admiral, that I've got all his marbles.
Yep. He's like, fortunately, neither of us is dead, Ensign. The reverse pressure worked, so the vent's closed. And Kirk is like, don't misunderstand me, but why aren't you dead? And McCoy likes to always take an opportunity to be racist. And he's like, it's that green blood of his. And Spock's like, my hemoglobin is based on copper and not iron. So it seems like because humans have iron based, the killer cloud likes iron.
So in his own racist kind of McCoy way, he was right.
Yeah.
He says, McCoy puts it, it left a bad taste in the creature's mouth. Kirk sticks his head in the room and sniffs. And the scent is different. He monologues a little bit about the creature, but again, no specifics. We don't know what he's talking about.
No, it just made no sense to me that the smell was different and he could sense something. Like, how come Kirk is all of a sudden empathic?
Yeah, right. And he says something like, I think I understand. I think I understand now. Scotty calls down. The creature is moving back toward the number 2 impulse vent, and he thinks the radioactive flushing is affecting it. So Kirk has him open the vent, and then he says something to Garvik about being on the bridge during red alert, and Garvik's like, yeah, I'm super sorry about that. But Kirk's not reprimanding him. Instead, he asks for Garvik's assessment of the battle, a military appraisal, if you will, of the techniques used against the creature. And of course, Garvik says that, everything they tried was ineffective. Kirk did everything he could. Nothing works against that monster. So Kirk says, okay, well, how about your conduct on the planet? And he's still up in his head about freezing, but Kirk's like, it's the same thing, Garvik. If you hadn't delayed firing, no difference, because the phasers won't make any difference to this thing.
Yep. And I knew that Spock's words were sinking into Kirk, even though he didn't like being psychoanalyzed.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both kind of at a point now where maybe they can start figuring out how to shed the guilt.
Right. And focus on the shit that they've gotten themselves into because of that guilt.
Yeah, we still have the problem of the whale. So back on the bridge, Chekhov reports that the creature has left the ship at high warp and is almost out of sensor range already, and Spock provides its course. So Kirk calls Scotty to muster up all the warp drive you can muster, mister, and keep flying until the ship starts shaking apart. Let it go, Elsa. Why are we chasing this whale?
Chasing a cloud, yep.
Kirk thinks he knows where the cloud creature is headed, and he orders Chekhov to lay in a course for the TOS star system and let both Starfleet and the Yorktown know, hey, we're headed for the 4th planet in that system. That's the location of the attack on the Farragut 11 years ago.
And Spock's like, I don't get it. What's with why? And Kirk said in Garrick's quarters, he smelled something different. And something in his mind, which this I don't get at all. Mm-hmm. Something in his mind said home. And Spock says, and you know where home is, Captain? And that's why they're going back to the TOS system. He thinks so. He doesn't know how he knows, but he thinks that home is where it fought a starship once before.
Yeah, that's weak sauce.
It's real weak.
Give me some scenes later, maybe, explaining that the way this creature communicates is through different chemical compositions that for humans produce a certain smell, and that's why the smells were different, or whatever. Give me some kind of something.
Yeah, they were reaching.
Again, there's no further effort to find a way to communicate with the creature. Kirk just tells Uhura to let Starfleet in the Yorktown know that Ahab is committing this ship to catching and destroying that whale. Then they will meet up with Yorktown and pick up the medical supplies. He still hasn't learned.
No, he's still after the whale.
Some time passes, and it looks like we're in orbit of Tychos 4 now. McCoy's asking Spock if he now agrees that they should pursue the creature and destroy it, and Spock does. But McCoy's still worried about the expiration date of those drugs. And I always try to stay open to convincing evidence. But I was pretty well Team McCoy here. Get the medical supplies, deliver them where they need to go, then maybe come back for the creature, or maybe don't.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, when they first beam back to the ship with the first 2 dead UCs, I'm like, just
get the
go.
fuck out of there. Yep.
Just go, but no.
And if they know where home is, then they could go anytime.
Right. Or they could have left before the damn cloud left the planet.
Right.
I mean,
Spock provides the convincing evidence. He believes the creature has returned here to spawn. And somehow...
How the fuck do you know that?
Who knows? And he also knows that it would reproduce by fission. Not just into 2 parts, but into thousands.
How?
What?
What? Okay.
So they got to kill it. And this is the kind of stuff that really strains my humanism. We'll talk about that more in a minute.
Yeah.
Kirk gives voice to the plan here. They're going to bait the creature with as much hemoplasm as medical can spare on the planet's surface, and then rig up an antimatter explosion to kill it. The risk to this plan, however, is that an ounce of antimatter will produce an explosion so large that it'll rip away half the planet's atmosphere, and if the Enterprise is still in orbit, boom.
Again, no regard to whatever might be on that planet. You can't just go destroy a planet just to kill a cloud.
Right.
I mean, but that's what he's gonna do, just to satisfy his own whim without talking to the creature or trying to understand it. Maybe it's just trying to survive. Who knows? But it's not necessarily evil or malevolent. Just leave it alone.
Right. Yeah, remember how we thought the moldy pizza was evil and malevolent until we found out it was just a mama protecting its babies? Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, we've
learned nothing.
We've learned nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Spock is also concerned that they may not be able to beam up whoever's on the planet because of the explosion. And Kirk says, well, that's why he's decided to set the trap himself.
And Spock is like, well, let me go, because there's no hemoglobin in my blood, in my green blood. So the creature wouldn't harm him anyway. It's just logical for him to be the one. But Kirk is like, no. And if the plan fails, he's going to need Spock to be aboard the ship. And so that's not going to work.
Because we've seen that several times where Kirk has gotten shit goes sideways. And we thank God Spock was on the bridge to get him out of it, right?
To save his ass, right.
So he's kind of right. Spock's final effort is to remind Kirk that it will take 2 men to transport the antimatter unit. But it's still not going to be Spock. Garrovick quickly enlists. And that's exactly who Kirk had in mind.
Hey, I'm going to kill you just like I killed your dad. I don't know.
So Ahab and Ahab Jr. now beam down to the surface with what looks like some kind of anti-grav unit. It's like a couple of slabs with handles on it. And beneath this thing is a blue bowling ball.
Yes, I was thinking blue bowling ball, and it's sort of floated.
Yeah. Garrovick lets go of the handle to go check the large jug of blood. And it kind of floats, yeah. There's a quick throwaway line here that happens so quickly it might not have stuck in your brain. Garrovick says that 1 ounce of antimatter here is more powerful than 10,000 cobalt bombs. And Kirk says, well, let's hope it's as powerful as man will ever get. Another remark on the H-bomb, maybe?
Maybe.
Kirk takes the detonator from Garrovick and attaches it to the anti-grav unit. Spock's holding the Enterprise at 30,000 kilometers, and Kirk says he'll call back once the trap is baited, but Garrovick notices the cloud hovering above the blood container, and it lowers onto the container, and the container's empty in no time. And Kirk's like, well, shit, we'll need something else for bait now. And of course, he means himself.
Garevik is like, well, it only feeds on blood, so it's got to be one of us.
Garevik steps back behind Kirk as Kirk orders him to go back to the Enterprise.
Star Trek fight! Chops him on the neck to try to like sacrifice himself, and he's thinking, Garevik is thinking, I'll be the one, and tries to knock Kirk out, but that doesn't work.
You can't take down Captain Kirk. Come on.
No.
So the karate chop to the neck knocks him down, but it wasn't enough to take him out, and Kirk gets up and throws a couple punches back at Garevik. Kirk tells Garevik to consider himself on report. No time for heroics. And Kirk doesn't intend to sacrifice himself quite yet. Still got some tricks up his sleeve. So he calls up Spock. And he says, listen, it's going to be a close one. The cloud creature approaches. Kirk's repeating, stand by, wait for it, wait for it. And Garevik says he can smell the sweet honey smell.
Do you smell it? That smell. The kind of smelly smell. A smelly smell that smells smelly. Anchovies.
He says, it's sickening, honey, sweet. And I'm thinking of that Def Leppard song. Pour some sugar on me. Yes. Thick and sweet. From my head to my feet. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Finally, as it almost overtakes them, Kirk says, energize and detonate.
And he piled upon the whale's white hump the sum of all the rage and hate felt by his whole race. If his chest had been a cannon, he would have shot his heart upon it.
What?
Moby Dick.
Spock, McCoy, and Scotty are in the transporter room, and their first attempt failed. The transporter sort of like flickered a bit and then went back out. They reset, try it again, and Chekhov pipes in with a ship-wide announcement. Shockwaves inbound. Brace yourselves.
They've blown up a planet. And McCoy's like, do something. And Spock's like, we're trying. So they're cross-circuiting to A, cross-circuiting
whatever
to
that
B,
means.
whatever that means. And 1 minute they sort of have them, and then 1 minute they don't have them anymore. And McCoy, again, he always has this adverse reaction to the transporter. He's like, that's the crazy way to travel, spreading a man's molecules all over the universe.
Like, Leonard, either be helpful or shut the fuck up.
Yes.
It takes a bit, but they finally materialize on the platform. And Scotty says, Captain, thank heaven. And Spock says, Mr. Scott, there was no deity involved. It was my cross-circuiting to B that recovered them.
McCoy's like, well, thank pitchforks and pointed ears, as long as it worked.
This reminded me a lot of like when people have surgery or whatever, and everyone's like, oh, thank God, when it was really, thanks to the education and experience of the medical professionals who did the actual work. Mm-hmm. Right. And they should get all the praise. That's what it made me think of. But good for them in the 60s to have Spock come back and say, no, don't thank God. God had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, always a voice of reason.
So then Kirk's like, well, now that we've taken a life, let's go save some, maybe, huh? In the final beat, Kirk tells Garevik to get cleaned up and come to his quarters. He's got some tall tales about Garevik's dad he'd like to share. Off we go to our next adventure.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
Moby Dick in space.
Again.
Yeah.
This was similar to that one where it was the other captain chasing a whale. It was the other captain and his guilt.
Yes.
At killing his crew, but he was willing to take another crew and basically sacrifice that crew just to appease his own guilt. And this time it was Kirk doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah. We've seen several elements of this across a whole bunch of different episodes, really with the same basic principle or storyline or whatever. So in that way, it's kind of a repeat. The way revenge often blinds us to everything else. And that kind of single-minded obsession shuts out any critical thinking. You've got to be self-aware enough to stop yourself and go, hang on, like self-check. Let me check in with myself right now. What am I doing? And he did. And Kirk did that at the beginning, right? There was a couple of times where he was like, man, should I even be doing this? Should we be here on this planet still?
He did it anyway.
But he did it anyway.
And he blew up a planet. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. And again, we're refusing to make any effort to communicate.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, it doesn't seem like there's any kind of way to communicate, but they don't even try.
Right.
So we just kill it then?
Right.
And not only that, it's about to reproduce. So is killing what amounts to a pregnant living being right?
And it was only like here in the animal kingdom, it's kill or be killed. There's no evil and malevolence to it. It's survival. And when you go out in space, you're kind of subject to that kind of stuff because you don't know what you're going to encounter. So you may encounter a being that just needs to eat, obviously. Okay, it needs to eat. And it sucked on the human beings as if they were flowers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just nourishment, nothing personal.
Right.
But we, chased it across the universe and murdered it. I say we, I mean Kirk.
Yeah.
We meaning humans, but Kirk just chased it across the universe and murdered it.
Yeah.
So, I don't like that.
No. And then that great bit at the end we just talked about where Scotty says, thank heaven. And Spock's like, excuse me. That was great. Again, the value of reality and science and critical thinking and reason.
Yep. And they can get away with that in the 60s because Spock is not human.
Right.
So they have an out whenever they could talk about not thanking a deity or not being beholden to a deity. They always had an out because of him, which I love.
All right. Well, did anybody die in this episode?
Yeah, mostly UCs.
Red shirt after red shirt after red shirt.
Yeah, I think I missed one because I forgot about that
second
unmentioned
one.
Yeah, well, the unmentioned one on the ship that when the cloud got in. So, oops. I don't know if I can throw something.
They weren't named characters, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Dead, Jim.
We are assembled here today to pay final respects to our honored dead.
A smell as sweet as honey in a fine mist. 3 red shirts choked and blood drained by something that wasn't supposed to exist. If only Captain Kirk had just let it go, they went back down to the planet with 5 more. And now we have 2 more dead and another critical. The killer cloud proved to be quite formidable. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
We had a body count of 5.
Let's get right to business. Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
Well, there are a lot of great ways to help support our show. One of the free ways to do that is to leave a review and a rating wherever you listen to Humanist Trek. Share out our episodes on social media. Tell your friends and family. Of course, one of the best ways to support us is to give us some of your Federation credits by becoming a patron of the show. As always, we want to thank all of our patrons. We want to give an extra special thanks to our founding admirals. Special thank you to Russell, Allie, Peter, and Sarah.
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you, patrons. Patrons get early access to every episode. There are different merch at various levels. There are some patron-only episodes. We did a great South Park review of a South Park episode that ripped on the Star Trek episode. That was lots of fun. And we're planning on doing some more of those as we go along. Head on over to patreon.com/humanisttrek. Pledge as little as $3 a month. It does go a long way to supporting the production of this show.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
All right, Becca's back with us now to get the answer to last week's exciting Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge question. Last time on Humanist Trek, you asked us...
As you know, many props in this series were reused in multiple episodes to keep costs down. In this episode, we see a large object.
What? Is that your cat? What are you? What's wrong with you?
I just thought about that one prop.
Oh. Oh, yes. Okay.
It was in this one, wasn't it?
I think so. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Do the question.
Are you quite finished?
No, probably not.
As you... Oh my fucking God. As you know, many of the props in this series were reused in multiple episodes to keep costs down. In this episode, we see a large object which looks like a vertical DVD rack in the medical records library between Spock and McCoy. What episode did this object make its first appearance?
Okay, first of all, do you have a timestamp? Because I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Let me see if I can find it.
I still don't have an answer for this one. I don't even remember what I said.
We both agreed I mud. Let's get the answer, and then I'll scrub the video to see if I can find this prop that you speak of.
Okay.
What's the answer to the question?
It was, in fact, I mud.
Holy shit. We guessed right.
It was in Harry Mudd's laboratory.
No shit.
Okay. That was a complete guess.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's find it. It's got to be that scene. It's got to be.
I don't see it.
Doesn't look like a CD tower.
Anyway.
That thing doesn't look like a CD tower.
Oh, maybe the circles? I don't know.
Oh, it's next to McCoy. Right at the edge of the frame. Did you see it?
That kind of CD tower. Yeah. Like burner CDs. I'm thinking of
Look,
music
on the
CDs.
left, right there. Yep.
Oh, that's such an obscure question. I don't even get a...
The fucking name of the file for the questions are obscure Star Trek trivia.
I know.
What do you want from me?
Oh, you're doing your job. That's for sure.
No shit.
Was it this thing? There it is.
Here. Yeah. That right there.
Okay.
I hate that you can't fucking pause this video. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I missed it.
All right.
You got it right. I don't understand why you're all pissed off.
Because I didn't think to watch for it.
Oh, okay.
And so then I wanted to see it. That's all.
Mhm.
God.
Oh, yeah, we got it right. Okay.
Yay,
cool.
we got it right. Woo!
Oh my God.
Okay. Okay, next week we'll be reviewing Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 14, Wolf in the Fold. Scotty is implicated in a Jack the Ripper style murder. What?
Don't remember. Is this like they didn't go back in time, or did they go to a planet where they were like old timey?
From the thumbnail image, it looks like they're in like a. Where do you go where the belly dancers are? What's that place?
Morocco?
Yeah, but what's the place? It's like that's what it looks like. It looks like a whatever that place is called.
Where do you go where the belly dancers go?
Go look at the thumbnail for this episode. It's Scotty and this brunette hair girl with a
hold on,
barely anything on. See what is that called? There's a name for that place.
Morocco.
No, I know the room. Damn it.
I don't know what the name of the room is. It's a Moroccan dance room. I think you're crazy, but okay.
Like a harem or what? Like a genie bottle? What?
That's what it is. The inside of the genie's lamp.
Fuck, man, I don't know. But I'm telling you, there is a word for it. It's like the kind of establishment that it is. Like you'd go on down to the saloon to get a shot of whiskey. You'd go on down to the whatever this place is to see some Moroccan belly dancing. I don't know. Anyway.
Hookah lounge?
I don't remember anything about this episode.
I don't either.
The point.
I learned how to belly dance as a teenager from like an authentic like place.
Yeah.
Cool. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
No, I didn't learn. Like I took like 3 or 4 classes, but like we went to this place and that's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't think there's a room that
What's
exists.
our question for Wolf in the Fold?
So if you know me, you know that I'm a huge fan of 80s music. So when I found this tidbit, of course I had asked this question. In the late 1980s, what pop band sampled Scotty's line from this episode, Let's Go See, in a song? Extra points if you can name the song.
Christ, I don't know.
You need to...
80s?
80s.
Let's Go See. Is it popular song?
Not really. I don't think so. Like, there's lots of 80s songs that I love that Sarah's like, what is that? So I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Trying to think of a song with the lyrics. Let's Go See.
I have nothing on this one. Sorry. No answer.
No answer.
I can't even, like, my brain is so shot I can't even think of a song to guess.
Me either. Sorry, you stumped us again.
Yay for me.
You can be scoring how many points you're getting in all of this.
To be fair, I had heard of this band, but I had not heard of this particular song where they sampled this line.
Okay.
So it might be very obscure. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess I'll tell you next time.
Yeah. All right. So we don't have answers. If you want to try to get this one, again, no cheating, no Googling. Set a course for your nearest social media app and post your answer with this episode using the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, and we'll pick out a winner. Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek, the original series, Season 2, Episode 14, Wolf in the Fold.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.